In today's show, we're going to talk about how to get SharePoint groups using Power Automate, right? A lot of you build your apps and your automates on top of SharePoint, and you want to access those SharePoint groups. Maybe pull the emails, their names, that type of stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to talk about SharePoint groups and how to get those via Power Automate. Now, it is a little tricky, right? It's not straightforward. We're going to have to use the SharePoint HTTP action. We're going to call an API. We're going to parse some JSON. Yikes! Not going to lie, it's a little rough. And rough's the wrong word. It's something that'll be very easy as I guide you through it, but it was rough for me to figure out how to do to begin with. But that's okay. We're going to work through all the pieces. When we're done, you'll have all of it. Hopefully you'll understand how it works, but the idea is we'll be able to hey, here's how you extract the email or their login name or their actual title. And so then we'll use that to send them all an email at the end, but we'll also throw it in an HTML table so you can see how that works. Hopefully once you get it, we get that first easy one, we're going to understand. The other interesting thing about this is it's not exactly perfect, right? It is when we're done. But as we go through, things are going to break and we're going to have to fix those. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that as we go as well. So that's enough blah, blah, blah. Let's return to my desktop and take a look. Okay, I thought the first thing we should do to start is talk about SharePoint groups. So, these days, if you're net new to SharePoint, then you've probably already used SharePoint, or you haven't used a lot of SharePoint groups because Microsoft encourages us to use Office groups these days. But all of us that have been doing SharePoint for a long time, right? See all the books? I wrote 6 of them, started back in 2003. And no, I don't care how old you were in 2003. I'm sure you were very young. I was not. Anyway, as we did that though, we got used to using SharePoint groups. So as we moved to the cloud, we naturally use SharePoint groups. So a lot of people want to be able to figure out how to talk to those SharePoint groups. And there's no built-in action in Power Apps or Power Automate. So to do it, we're going to have to roll up our sleeves a little bit and see what we can do here. So just to kind of get us all on the same page, I'm going to go back to the home of my SharePoint site. And so what I want to do is go up here to the right, and I'm going to say Site Settings. And there's 7 ways to get the site settings these days. So whatever your way is works fine. And then over here, we've got People and Groups. And so here you can see these are all the SharePoint groups that I'm currently have on my site. And so if we go down here to this Owners one, here's one of the pieces of information we need. All right, I don't care about the name of the group. I care about the group ID. So you see up here, membership group ID equals 5. So for this one, we're going to need number 5 here in a second as we build out our flow. So we understand that. Let's go build a flow. So over here, we're going to go to Create. And then I'm just going to do an instant cloud flow because, our trigger doesn't matter. We're not worried about how you're triggering this. It wouldn't change anything we're about to do. So I'm just going to manually trigger it. And then we're going to call this video SharePoint groups, if I can spell the word SharePoint, right? SharePoint groups. The P in SharePoint is always capitalized, one of my pet peeves. So we create, there you go. So then now the very first thing you want to do is a new step. We're going to search for SharePoint, SharePointer, haha, SharePoint. And you're going to send an HTTP request to SharePoint, right? It's one of those actions we use every now and then, that whole API thing. But it's not bad. It's okay. It's just a bunch of words, a bunch of text. So site address. What are we going to do? We're going to use the site. I want to get that. So that was Power Apps Videos. And the method is get, right? We want to get information. Now for the URL, let me steal that real quick. One sec. So for the URL here, we're going to paste in this. And so it's /API web site groups get by ID. And it has the number 7 and then users. Now remember, what did we just say over here? My group ID is 5. So I purposely made that one wrong. So we'd have to change it. But all we're going to do is go in and just delete the 7, make it a 5. And your number will be different too. Or you might be 5, whatever. But make sure you're getting the right one for yours. Okay. So we're going to do that. We're then going to go down here. And for our headers, we're going to say we want to accept. And then we're going to steal again. One sec. And I'm going to paste this in. And so it's application /JSON semicolon OData equals verbose. Now remember, if you're a member of the curated library, you can just download this working flow. You don't have to worry about all this stuff, right? Everything that you're going to see today, you can just download and not have to write any of it. But for the rest of you, you'll have to write that out. So there you go. Okay, so now that you've done this, let's test it. So we're going to say save. Be happy I edited that out. It took forever. And then we're going to say test. And then we're going to manually trigger it, and we're going to say test. it says, hey, you cool with SharePoint? I am. So we're going to say continue and run my flow. And finally done. Okay, your flow ran successfully. Yay! So this is the first step because we need this step. So when I wrote this myself, I needed this step before I could go to the next one. So you have to do the test because what we want from here is this output. Now you might, if you're a curious type, click show raw output. You can go crawling through all this and see everything that is here, including, that somewhere in here, look, there's Daniel and May's email address. And then somewhere down here is in this hot mess is mine. There's my email address. So that is, we can see that the email addresses, our first goal is to email these people are in there. So tells us we got back good data. So we're going to close this out. We're going to put our cursor in here. We're going to say Control A and Control C because we need this output. Okay. So that looks good to me. So now what I want to do is I'm going to say edit the flow. And so we've got that big old thing. That's called JSON, right? Fancy text. Who cares? We want to take that hipster text and we want to parse it. So we're going to say new step. We're going to search for parse JSON, not JSON, JSON. And then there you go. So for the content, we're going to skip that for the moment. We're going to go straight to the schema. And you want to generate from sample. That's why we stole that. That's why we had to run the first test. So generate from sample. Now you're going to paste this in. Now, you've got to do some cleanup work, okay? All right, so this is where you're going to have to be patient and meticulous. You guys are going to mess this up and leave me comments like I did exactly what you said and it didn't work. Nope, you didn't do exactly what I said or it would have worked. Anyway, what I want you to do is we don't want this. We don't want this first curly bracket, the D colon, that curly bracket results. We want to start at that square brace. So highlight all that, delete that out. Okay, so there's a square brace. So we deleted a curly and a square. So go to the bottom, right? We should end in the square. So we need to get rid of, we deleted two curlies. We didn't delete a curly and a square. We deleted two curlies. So we want to delete those two curlies from down here. Okay, it looks like it's happy. So we're going to say done and cross our fingers. Whew, I screwed that up when I was practicing earlier. Told you, typos there happen. So what happened is by giving it the sample payload that we're going to get, it went ahead and figured out what all the types and such were. All right. So then for the content section, we're going to kind of do this in two steps. So we want the body, right? But we know that we don't want the body. Remember, we just removed D in results. So we want body D results, but we can't get that directly here. So we're going to select body. We're going to go up here. I'm going to kind of click and you see how it's kind of highlighted. And if you hover, see outputs, blah, 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 question mark, body. I want that. With it highlighted the way it is right now, if I hit Control C, it will grab that. Now we're going to X, go to expression over here, pull this a little sideways, paste that in. If it pastes in, it should start with an @ symbol curly. Get rid of those two. So then there's that output, send HTTP request to SharePoint like we just wanted. Question body, trailing curly. Get rid of that, right? We do a lot of deleting around here. So now we want to drill in because we don't want the body. We want body D results. So we got to drill. And so in Power Apps, I feel like we always use a dot to do that. Here we use a question mark. So question mark, square bracket, single quote, and a lowercase d. So that was that first tier. Go into that, question mark, square bracket, single quote, and then the word results. So the two things that we deleted out of the sample data, because we didn't want to parse all that, we wanted to get to the meat. So this is how we get to the meat. We took that out of the sample data, but we have to then drill in to what we pass. So we say, okay, here I'll hover over that for just a second so you guys can hit pause or whatever to like if you want to see it, but that's the whole formula that you exactly need inside of there. Okay, I think I did it right. I don't think I've screwed up so far. So we're going to say save. And now they recommend we test it. I recommend we test it. So we're just going to say do a test automatically, boom, boom, and test. Okay, so it failed. That's okay. I actually expected it to fail. But it didn't fail because of a typo. It failed. Let's see. Expand this out. Invalid type. Expected string but got null. And it looks like for the third object, remember because these counters start at 0. So 0, 1, 2 is the third. So 0, 1, 2. The user principal name was null and it expected it to be a string. Okay. So this is good because this is what I was very happy. This happens. It's going to happen to us again in a few minutes as well. my data wasn't perfect. So one of the system accounts doesn't have a user principal name. So it's failing. So the parse JSON is failing because it says, hey, I expected a string but got null, but that was a field that's not acceptable for. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say edit. We're going to put our brave faces on. You're going to go in here. And so somewhere in this hot mess is the service principal name. So we're going to scroll. Or not service principal name, user principal name, right? Yes, user principal name. So look, this is where it says, hey, it expects a type of string, but we gave it a null for one of the records, and that's what it's mad about. So what you have to do is you have to tell it that null's okay. So we're going to manually write some schema. Yikes. No, you're smart enough. You got this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a square bracket, and we're going to close the square bracket. So that's just saying, hey, instead of just giving you one value, I want to give you multiple. We're going to go inside our square bracket. We're going to do a comma, and then double quotes, and then null. Weirdly enough, earlier it auto-suggested null for me. I was so impressed with Flow, but it's not doing it now, so whatever. But there you go. That looks okay to me, so we're going to be brave. We're going to hit save. And now we'll do another test. Hey, it's happier. And if we look at parse JSON, right? So now we could, if we want to, we could scroll through all these, and we would see that in the user principal name for the system account, which is the very last one, it ended up with a user principal name of null. So that was what was causing it. That was the bad data. But now we told it you can either get text or null there. Both of those are fine, and it's happy. So there you go. We've got those. We are on our way, folks. We have parse JSON. So now it's the easy part. Now what we want to do is we want to loop through all that and get all the email addresses, and we're going to store those in a variable so we can send them. So we've done this type of thing before. We're going to say edit. We're going to hit plus, add an action. We're going to search for variable, wait patiently, and we're going to say we want to initialize. Remember with Flow, we have to initialize variables first. So there you go. We're going to call this var email string. Sure. Type is a string, no initial value, easy. So then down here, we're going to say new step. We're going to type in variable again. And this time what I want you to do is I want to append to a string variable, because we're going to plop in my email address, then Daniel's email address, then a blank email address. So append a string variable. What variable? Var email string. What value? Now this can be confusing if you've never seen this before. If you've watched any of these videos, you've probably seen it, but just in case, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here, and in our dynamic content, we're going to see that email is a value. When I paste this in though, you're going to see that it's going to put an apply to each around this. So watch, things are going to magically change just by clicking right here. Ta-da! What happened is Flow said, hey, parse JSON is spitting out a table of email addresses. And so I can't just put those in here. I got to loop through each value that comes out. But so then for every one of those, so in our case, there's 3 rows. For every row, we're going to write the value here. And then I want to separate them with a semicolon. So I'm going to put that right here. So email, semicolon, email, semicolon, email, semicolon is what's going to happen in this particular scenario. Cool. Apply to each is done. One last step. We're going to say Outlook. And we're going to say send an email. And so for the two, believe it or not, we can just say add dynamic content and say var email string, right? Because it's going to be a valid email string. You know what? Let's make sure we can visualize it. So we're going to say another step right here. We're going to compose. Remember, I use these like labels, so we can just throw that on the screen so we can see it for ourselves. But that'll just show it to us. This is not a necessary step. This is just for your and my benefit to see what's going on. But we're going to send an email to those emails. We're going to say, video viewers say hi. And then body, sorry for the spam. Right? Daniel will get over it though. So there you go. That's all the steps, I think. Let's try it. So we're going to say test. Now we can't, I don't want to do it anyway. So this is going to fail. We're going to say save and test. I want you to see this failure because you might run into this and you'll ask me in the comments and I'll be like, it was in the video. All right, we did a test and it's like, hey, I can't find Office 365 tokens. Because when I did the test earlier, this send an email wasn't in here. The send an email needs an authentication token, which is not part of my test run. So say test, manually trigger it again. And then now you can see that it's asking for permission for Office 365. We'll say continue, run the flow, done. And now it has the token. So it's a very common error. I want you to see it and be reminded of that. But you can see everything has worked. The compose, Daniel May, semicolon Shane, and then blank because that system account doesn't have an email address, and an extra semicolon. It sent the email successfully. And let me go check my email. One sec. Ta-da! Look at that. Me and Daniel got an email. Sorry for the spam. Video viewers, say hi. So there you folks go. Look, we just looped through and sent an email to those all those people. Okay? So 2 more things I want to do with you. One is we're going to use a different group because it has another bug in the data. I want you to see the bad things that happen. So let's go do that first. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make an HTML table, but that is super easy. So hard one here. Okay, so in my list of groups, so we did group 5 here, right, which was Daniel and I. If we go to members, there's a lot more people in here. And weirdly enough, like Megan here is an external person that is a member. So with Megan being an external person, her record inside the SharePoint group is different. So it is going to break things. So let's try this group. So group ID is 7. Remember, I told you this code's all totally reusable. All we have to do is change this 5 to a 7 and say test. We can now automatically test. Now it's going to break. That's okay. We're expecting it to, or I know it's going to break. But as far as the code, like when you're stealing it from me, right? Like we're getting it from the curated library, you can just use it. You just change your number and you're happy. So this one broke. What happened? Parse JSON. Invalid type, expected object, but got null. Oh, which one? User number, the 14th row's user ID was null. So what does that tell you? Well, if you go and look through the raw data, which we are welcome to do, let's just look at raw data again. Why not? So we'll go to show raw outputs. If we were to go in here and find Megan, oh, not like that. Make sure you put your cursor right here and say Control F. It gets a little find menu shows up. So Megan, look, her user ID is null because she's an external person. So that broke our JSON. Well, what do we do when JSON gets null and it expects something else? We just go fix it, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to edit. We're going to go back to parse JSON. In this hot mess, be brave, is user ID. Somewhere, there it is. Type object. So we know that it got a type null back, and that's what made it mad. So what do? Put our square brackets around it first. Put a comma, quote. I'm telling you earlier, it suggested null. It was so weird. And null. And so that's all we have to do is tell it that, hey, objects are valid here and nothing is valid here. That's it. That one little change will make all this better. So we'll test to confirm that I'm not crazy. And so the way that I think about this, when you're going through and troubleshooting this, because it's not perfect, right? It's not a science. I mean, it is technically a science, but I just kind of have to feel my way through. You just got to roll your sleeves up. Oh, look at me roll my sleeves up, my fancy sweatshirt, and kind of go through it. But it's a lot like Chewy, right? The way that Chewy kind of, when he's hungry, he grabs his food bowl and kind of nudges it at me, right? He's trying to tell me he's hungry. Parse JSON's trying to tell me what's broken. I just have to calm down, read the error message, think about it for a second, and usually I can work my way through it. But every time I do these types of projects, that's what I have to put on my brave face and dig in. But look, now it worked. And oh crap, I did not mean to do that. Oops. But I just sent an email to all these people. They're all going to email me back and say, yo, why'd you do that? That's okay. So there you go. That was one of the things I tripped over. I had a hard time with that. Thankfully, Daniel May helped me understand that I could solve that problem by myself. Because the second time I got it, I did solve it by myself. Okay, last little thing I wanted to show you guys. So if you're like, all right, this is all great, but this is all about emails. What if you wanted to like get them all as a table or something, right? Or we're going to get rid of, or we're going to change send an email to just send it to me. So it quits sending it to all those people. Shane at powerapps911.com. But what I want you to do down here is new step and HTML, create HTML table. So where are you going to get the content from? So you want it from the body of the parse JSON. Now, It doesn't like to offer you that, but if you search for body, it will offer you the parse JSON's body, not the HTTP request, the parse JSON's body. And then if you say show advanced options, you can be like, oh, columns, give me all of them, do it yourself. No, custom. And we're going to say, hey, I want the name. And so their name is actually stored in the title field. So we're going to search for title right there. And then email. And that is actually stored in the email column. You knew that already though. Email, just like that. We'll do one last test. We're almost done, I promise. Actually, we're done as soon as this test finishes. Look at that, my flow ran successfully. And if we blow out the create HTML table, we've now got the HTML table there. So we could include that in a PDF, the body of an email, whatever you want to do with it, right? Now you know how to get these people, you know how to do things with it, right? And so you've got their name, you got their title, you got their user login information, right? You've got all their SharePoint information you couldn't get otherwise, so you can do fun things with it. So do you have ideas of other fun things to do with it? Leave me video comments. Leave me comments, not video comments. I don't want to watch you. I want to talk to you. Leave the comments below, though, like other ideas you might want to see expounded upon with this. But I think there's a lot of cool stuff that you guys can do now that we can do groups. So, and I think that kind of sums up everything for today. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully it gives you some great ideas. Remember, if you want to download the whole working app, go out to the training.powerapps911.com, download the curated library. We've also got a bunch of new offerings that are going live today, right? Well, Monday, but you're going to see this on Monday, so it is Monday for you. So it is today. It's confusing. It's Friday for me. But anyway, so you'll get all of that. So check out all of those. Yeah, you have any other ideas? I'm always all ears. I know if you follow me on Twitter, I had people vote whether they want this or another email or another video about attachments. That one is coming, but Power Automate was being a jerk face, so I told it no thank you. So I ended up passing. So anyway, with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem's big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.